Chapter 12, Ethical, Legal, and Social Issues of IT.
This is part 4 of 4, Internet Access. The learning outcomes include evaluate censorship online, explore the digital divide, interpret how ubiquitous use of the Internet raises questions on topics such as net neutrality and the Internet of Things.
Internet censorship is also a concern, and this is where a government or a group controls or suppresses information on the Internet. For instance, in France, it is illegal to sell Nazi paraphernalia. There was access to Nazi paraphernalia on Yahoo, although it was not available on yahoo.fr for France, but they could get to the U.S. site where it is legal to sell Nazi paraphernalia under freedom of speech. So there's an ongoing battle there, but so France does suppress some in terms of they won't allow Nazi paraphernalia. Most governments have some things they won't allow. More recently, Facebook and Twitter in particular have taken down ISIS-related postings or other postings they consider to be supporting terrorism. Or Twitter took down the app that they had where you could keep track of what politicians said, even if they deleted their tweet. They took it down, it was requested to be put back up, and they say they will do it. So there's always some suppression by organizations, by countries, by corporations, whoever it may be. So you limit access to websites, allow access only to modified content, like Yahoo France had to take down the access to Nazi paraphernalia. Not allowing certain keywords, tracking and monitoring people, and then jailing them for what they've done. Now, any internet censorship, there are ways around it. They just can become very risky in other countries, or even here if you're on terrorist supporting websites. So internet censorship is a concern and something we should be aware of. If you take a look at this map, the green shows little to no censorship. There is selective censorship as you get yellow and worse as you go towards red. So much of the world does have access to fairly uncensored information on the Internet, but a large portion does not. A large portion has some censorship. For instance, in China, Google worked with them to try to get a resolution to how searches would be received by Google and then the output that they would show to people, to Chinese citizens that were searching on the Internet. They never reached a resolution. So now you have a country of over 1 billion people who don't use Google. Now that's a large amount of the population that don't even know what Google is, and they use a different search engine because Google would not agree to the censorship requirements that the Chinese government had specified. Internet access has only grown over the years, as we all know, and is going to continue to grow. If you look at the first figure, the world mobile penetration rates, you can see as you get orange and red, there's a large percentage of people with access to mobile data, mobile phones, whatever it might be. And as you go down to more yellow and orange, there's less access to mobile data and mobile phones and so forth. But this is obviously a growing trend and something that companies need to make sure their data is displayed in a good format for mobile readers. If you look at the figure at the bottom right, you can see as of November 2015, the Internet world penetration rates, North America being highest at 88%, and Africa being lowest at 29%. As a company, it's important to know where your customers are and where the growth is going to be. And those countries with less access are likely, if government interference doesn't occur, are likely to grow over the years and may present a market that should be considered for your IT services or products. A couple of issues that are relevant to Internet access are the digital divide and the E-rate program in the U.S. You probably have heard of the digital divide. It describes the haves versus the have-nots. The access to information that we have in the United States is incredible. If you want to know something, you find it immediately. We don't wait, and we don't expect to have to wait. So it's the distance between those who do and those who don't have access. And if you think about the previous page, we talked about different parts of the world that have little to no access. Africa with only 29% access. Imagine if you're there and you want to know the answer to a question. You are disadvantaged because you don't have access to the answer that you and I can easily find. But this digital divide exists everywhere. Within the U.S., oftentimes poorer, less socioeconomic areas, more disadvantaged socioeconomic areas have less access to Internet than do those in urban areas or those in more higher socioeconomic areas. It also exists, oftentimes the older population has less access to the Internet than does the younger population who've grown up with the Internet. So the digital divide does exist everywhere, but the U.S. has a large amount of access to the Internet and even provides it at K-12 schools, at colleges and universities, and at libraries, and at other centers and locations to try to reach as many people as possible. The E-rate program is something that tries to make more Internet digital resources available to K-12 schools in the U.S. And they give very large discounts for classrooms and libraries to receive more access, faster access to digital content. That is a U.S. program.
A couple of other issues with Internet access include net neutrality and the Internet of Things, IoT. You may have heard that term. With net neutrality, the belief is that Internet service providers should treat all traffic on their lines the same. So even if Netflix is using 90% of the bandwidth of the Internet service provider, they should still pay a fee similar to other people who are using the Internet service, the wireless wired broadband networks. There are arguments for both sides that the net should be neutral, open, and accessible to all at similar fees without making those who use more pay more. With that argument, Verizon couldn't, for instance, start a new streaming service and provide it with the fastest streaming times possible while throttling Netflix. The FCC sets the rules on net neutrality. The FCC in the past has ruled that throttling some customers and not others is unfair business practices. However, they recently overturned that long-standing policy on net neutrality and opened the door to allow ISPs more latitude in how much they charge for access. Service providers argue that they should be able to charge Netflix more because they use more than others. If I have a bigger house, I pay more for electricity than my neighbor who has a smaller house. The ISPs have thus far said they will not roll back any net neutrality policies that they have in place. Stay tuned for updates on this issue. You may have begun to hear more about the Internet of Things. IoT theorizes that everything is going to be on the internet, talking back and forth with other connected devices. When I run out of milk, the refrigerator will know. It will send an order to Kroger, and it will be either waiting for me when I get there, or it will be delivered to my home after I arrive. So everything is connected. If someone rings my doorbell while I'm on vacation, I'm able to see them on Ring and talk with them. I can use Nest to adjust my thermostat and adjust lighting without getting out of the chair. If I want to hear some music, I can ask Alexa to play it for me. If my favorite restaurant has a discount tonight, I get alerted. I'm sent the electronic coupon along with directions and a request to confirm my usual order. With the Internet of Things, all products and people are able to exchange data seamlessly and efficiently with other connected devices. Amazon Echo, Alexa, and Google Home and others are working hard to penetrate the IoT market in the home.
The Internet of Everything is another way to look at this, because everything is connected and only becoming more so, including cars, which have already electronic data recorders, much like a black box in an airplane, but much less sophisticated, but that help insurance companies when evaluating what happened on an accident. You have Fitbits that track how far you walk, when you walk, and alert you that you need to walk more. So everything is connected already. It's only going to be more connected over time. So this is machine to machine, people to people, people to machine connections. We already have them. It's only going to grow as this figure shows. 37 billion new things will be connected by 2020. That's only a few years from now. Some contend that devices supported by the Internet of Everything will exceed 50 billion by the end of 2020. Here's another graph, figure 12.7, that shows the estimated growth of the Internet of Everything over time. This graph shows in terms of personal computers, how many of those there will be, smartphones, tablets, connected smart TVs, wearable devices, connected cars, and the Internet of Things. So you can see that the projections are showing a sharp increase in the number of things that we have connected, leading us to the Internet of Everything. To summarize this chapter that looks at the social, legal, and ethical issues of IT and implications for managers, ethics are sometimes in conflict with your personal ethics, with your morals, with legal statutes, and you have to determine how your beliefs about right and wrong behavior fit into the mix with the groups that you're associated with. Oftentimes you have to follow professional ethics, even if they might be in conflict with some of the things you may believe. While the U.S. Constitution never mentions privacy as a word, you won't find it, there are some arguments for our privacy, particularly government employees, through the First and Fourth Amendment. With the First Amendment, freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom to assemble, and the Fourth Amendment prohibiting the unreasonable searches and seizures by the government. There have been some legal cases that have been brought that the government has collected too much data under the Fourth Amendment and or the First Amendment, such as the NSA data collection recently. In order to try to overcome these challenges and all of these issues, it's helpful if organizations either appoint a chief privacy officer and or have policies in place that describe the privacy of its employees and customers and other stakeholders, or perhaps the privacy oversight might come under the job description of a chief information officer or a chief information security officer. Having an IT usage policy for your employees is also a good step. Finally, as the internet has grown and devices connected to the internet continue to grow, even with the digital divides that we have between the haves and the have-nots, internet censorship becomes a problem or becomes an issue that needs to be considered. Is the internet being controlled or suppressed? If so, do we want it to be? Is there a valid reason for it? One concept is net neutrality, which says that all internet service providers should treat internet traffic the same regardless of usage. As we've seen this growth in devices and the amount of things connected to each other, people to people, people to machines, and machines to machines, we're going towards, whether we want to or not, the Internet of Things. It becomes a reality, and what we're really seeing is we're moving towards the Internet of Everything.